Popcorn World. Popcorn World. Yeah. Can I make you groove now? Yes, I can. So you can get this groove in the back of a can. But to make it round the world when the holes in your hand. Popcorn World. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. 250 flavors gonna make you smile. I said popcorn make you smile. Ah. 250 flavors. Popcorn World. Popcorn World. Popcorn World. Popcorn World.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. Here's your man Lloyd Spence, and listen, you'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends all at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games to conference championships, right through the Final Four, which is going down this weekend, and the championship game. Listen, BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters this season. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV, B-L-E-A-V, to receive your bonus. BetOnline.ag is where the game starts, and you can tell them the Noisemaker sent you.
You're now listening to BLEAV in the ACC with Heisman Trophy winner and Florida State legend, Mr. Charlie Ward, Wave 3 TV, and Burn Big Hall of Famer Kendrick Haskins, and Mr. Talking Noise himself, and of course Mama Noise's man, Lloyd Spence. And now, it's time for BLEAV in the ACC.
Hello, everybody, or in the words of the great Jim Nance, hello, friends. That's so appropriate today because he just, he didn't retire. He is broadcast his last Final Four event, and I don't think he's going to be back from there. And then also the Masters starts today. So I get to hit you with the hello, friends. What a great line. Kendrick, you're a broadcaster, long-time broadcaster. Is there any line sports-wise that you wish you would have come up with first? That's one for me. Hello.
Maybe cooler than the other side of the pillow.
Cooler than the other side of the pillow. Yeah. Shout out to the late, great Stuart Scott, man. He nailed that one. In Fuego, that was always a good one. I like that one.
You can't hold them. You can only hope to contain them.
You can only hope to contain them. Man, some good ones out there, man. There's some really good ones out there. Yeah, but it's gonna be an interesting day today. The Masters, man. Tiger Woods still getting it done. Still out there trying, or at least trying to get it done.
He can get it done for a day or two. He just can't sustain it for 4 days.
Yeah, I don't know if he can sustain it, especially the way that they're talking like the weather's gonna be. It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good on Saturday. So anyway, but we'll come back to Tiger and all that later. This is BLEAV in the ACC. I am Lloyd Spence, your humble host here. That is Kendrick Haskins. He's a Hall of Famer, and I guess you're no longer the sports guy of the year, are you? Your reign is over now.
My reign is over. My reign of terror is over. Well, I guess technically it's still there because the ceremony for the new person is not until June. So
okay, so you got a little time. You still got a little time.
I still got some time.
Window.
Still a defending champion.
Right. You still have some responsibilities left to the pageant.
Yeah, I gotta clean out the office and all that stuff.
Right. So you got some time. It's good.
Still got some PTO to use.
Yeah. We're efforting to get Coach Ward on, as you saw if you were here, if you're watching us online. You saw Coach Ward pop up on the screen. We're having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure Coach Ward will get that worked out because that's what he do. He's not only a Heisman Trophy winner and a state championship coach, he's also his own tech guy.
He's
He's
his own IT.
He's his own
department.
IT. So he'll figure it out. In the meantime, what a weekend we just had. We've had the beauty of doing BLEAV in the ACC on Thursday now is that sometimes you get a chance to sit back and digest everything you just saw. And man, we saw something that was unbelievable over the weekend on many levels. And so it'll be interesting to have this discussion today about everything we just witnessed as it relates to the ACC in the Final Four, because we was up in there, baby. Although the results were not good.
They were not. I really gave Virginia Tech a shot against LSU. It just didn't work out.
And you know what? They had
a shot. I mean, they gave them all they wanted. LSU is just, it's weird to say that a team like LSU that has Kim Mulkey and they have, Reese, that they flew under the radar, but they kind of did. UConn and LSU both kind of flew under the radar.
Well, the reality
for
is
different reasons.
I was going to say the reality is that is 1,000% correct. They though LSU was lauded as talented, you didn't know whether or not that would all come together. And after they played South Carolina, it looked like maybe they might be a little bit overrated, which is why they got the 3 seed that they got, because they went into South Carolina and South Carolina handled them quite easily,
right?
Or it appeared to be quite easily. So, you were like, maybe LSU's, but to that same point, LSU was ahead of schedule. Like they 2 years ago, they won 9 games. So, we're not talking about a team who was picked to be a juggernaut or anything like that. They got a lot of transfers. They were rebuilding. Kim was trying to rebuild that program, whatever. To that same point, Virginia Tech, they are Virginia. That's Coach. There he is, right there. To that same point, Virginia Tech is, Virginia Tech is Virginia Tech. They do what they do every year. They're competitive always. They have been since Elizabeth Kitley has been there, and so there was no real expectations one way or the other of Virginia Tech, but they did somehow pull it together. And I'm a big proponent of momentum, and the same thing can be said about UConn. I'm a big proponent of momentum, and sometimes it's not about how good you are. Sometimes it's about when it all comes together. And if it all comes together at the right time and everybody starts gelling and people start figuring out what their roles are and what their responsibilities are, you can make a run, man. You can make a run in playoffs. It's proven time and time again. You don't have to be the best. You got to be the best that day.
The UConn caught fire. UConn was, they've been like that all year. They just had that weird January that took them off of everybody's radar. But LSU kind of fell off the radar too, because Bomani Jones, he brought up a good point that they only have the bandwidth for some reason. Well, ESPN only has the bandwidth to cover one female athlete at a time, and so it's like once Caitlin Clark got on the scene, ESPN didn't cover anything else.
Right. Well, but you know what? I'm gonna revisit that here in a minute, because I think the winds have dramatically changed in that regard, and not because ESPN wanted it to, because that's just how it is now. And something happened, I think, in this tournament that people did not expect to happen, and I think the winds are about to dramatically change going into next year. But before we get to that, Coach Ward is with us now. Coach, what were your overall thoughts before we get into the deep waters of the specifics? What were your overall thoughts of both the men and the women's tournament?
Well, of course, the women this year got more coverage and press because of who was actually playing in the tournament, the Final Four, which is good, as opposed to the men. There weren't any household names in the sense of national recognition, and the only brand that was there was basically that was accustomed to being there, which was UConn. I mean, you had Miami, who's not really known or hadn't been in that Final Four, but they had a very good team. And San Diego State and FAU. I mean, those aren't your normal teams, so they didn't get as much in the way of coverage and you know those types of things. With but of course the San Diego State and FAU game turned out to be really uh, a very good game,
Classic.
which
Yeah.
we expected. With two teams very similar in a lot of ways and a lot of back and forth. So that was a very good game. But UConn, I mean, they kind of rolled through the tournament. Some of that was helped by some upsets, I do believe,
Yeah.
along the way, which not made their path easier, but it took some of those tougher teams that possibly could have competed a little bit better off the table, and that's what you normally have when you need to make a run. Sometimes it's not always who you play is how you're playing at the time, and then who you're playing could end up help propelling you to where you want to go, and that's kind of what happened.
I think March Madness is a flawless tournament. Like there's just really no way for it to fail. Like it because it just in presentation and setup, it and then of course now it's getting even better because we finally have real genuine parity in college basketball because of the confluence of NIL and the transfer portal and all of the elements that are there. It's just a flawless tournament. It's almost impossible for it to fail, and you could expect it to be good, if not great, every year. Uh, and that's I mean it's I don't know, man. I love what it is. I love what it represents. It's my favorite time of the year for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just hard for it not to be bad. But I want to ask you guys this: what did Miami and Virginia Tech do wrong in this tournament? How did they come up short in your opinions?
I just think they just came up against better teams. I don't
Yeah,
think necessarily did anything wrong.
Okay,
They just
yeah, I
ran
mean,
into better
yeah,
teams.
yeah,
I mean, they
yeah,
both lost to the national champions.
yeah. Right. That's right. There's that. Miami to me played because we watched Miami all year. They played way above themselves, in my opinion. Like that, nobody in the ACC who watched Miami play this year would have said definite Final Four team. No, that they were good. They were
I
they were
thought they were
having
good enough to make a run all year, though.
they were
yeah,
well, but a run. What does that really mean? Like a
I
run?
mean, I felt like they could have made a run to the Final Four. I mean,
Well, yeah, I
the
didn't
only
think
thing that they didn't have was like bigs, but other than that, I mean, they had shooting, they had a strong rebound. I mean, they were still strong inside, even though they didn't have that much size per se, like compared
right.
to UConn or whatever. But I mean, they had the roster and they had the tools and made to go to the Final Four. I wasn't shocked that they got to the Final Four at all.
And see, I was because while they have it, they've had it for quite some time. Because again, Isaiah Wong's been there like 21 years, so it's I get it, but to me, I think Miami is the beneficiary of what you said, having some of the components that you need to make a run, but also things just kind of falling in place. Same thing for San Diego State. Same thing for FAU. UConn, I don't know. UConn was
I
pretty
felt
good.
like things fell into place for San Diego State and FAU, but like UConn and Miami, I think I wasn't surprised either one of them made a run.
Okay.
I don't think it was. I don't think there was so much things falling into place for those two teams.
Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Miami, as we know, it's all about matchups in these tournaments as well. And there wasn't a good matchup for Miami because they didn't have a big, and UConn had two that bothered them, on the inside, dominated the inside, I should say. And Miami played like they normally play. They just ran up against a team that defended well. Uh, Miami likes to, play a little one-on-one quite a bit, especially with Isaiah Wong. And I thought they had some quick shooting, which didn't help
Mm-hmm.
either. And while they were quick shooting, they were missing. Those are death to, a team when it comes to, how they're going to be successful offensively. Quick shooting and missing.
Yeah.
It's not a good combination.
Right.
So,
Right.
Usually not a formula for success.
Quick
and
shooting and missing.
Yeah, I
so
felt like Miami felt to me like they did come out nervous, especially
did.
that
They
first.
absolutely
They
did.
came out tight.
They
I think
absolutely
they
did.
relaxed a little bit as the game went on, but I think the enormity of the situation to me took a hold of Miami more than it did any of the other four teams in the Final Four.
That's an interesting statement. Up to the championship game too, or just in the Final Four game?
And it definitely on Saturday.
Okay,
on Monday,
because I thought
I
on
think so.
Monday,
I don't think the situation was too big for San Diego State either, because they came out fine.
I thought San Diego State came out a little bit tight, not terribly, not as tight as Miami was, but a little bit tight, and it got tighter as in the first half as the game kept going. Like as they kept falling behind, I think that was the first time they started feeling it a little bit, which they should, because you're fighting and you're trying to figure out what are we doing wrong. It feels like we're not doing anything wrong, but we are doing something wrong because they keep scoring and we're not. Like you said, quick shots, misses, the prop, it kept mounting. Now in the second half, I thought San Diego State did about as well as they could do. They slowed it down. They got a lot of the shots they wanted.
They made a run there. They made a run there late in the first half.
They did.
The second half.
They did. And honestly, I kind of thought, I said, okay, because I think when in these moments, the common thread of both the men's side and the women's side, because even with Virginia Tech, you have to apply a measure of pressure to teams sometimes to make them feel it so that they will make mistakes. And I don't know if San Diego State ever did that. Like they tried it in the second half. They were really starting to score and put a little bit more pressure on UConn. But UConn is a team that if you don't apply pressure, they're not going to help you. They're not going to make mistakes. They don't do that. Ain't what they do. Mistakes ain't what they do. So they're going to do their thing, and they did their thing. They were really good. I didn't realize they were that good, though. I'll be honest with you. I didn't realize they were that
because they had that bad January, so they kind of fell off everybody's radar.
Yeah, they were really, really good.
They were fantastic.
So they played. We were hoping that San Diego State could make a run.
Yeah.
But one thing about UConn that I'm always harping on in games where teams are up double digits in any point, but especially in the second half, you want to control the clock.
Yeah.
And how do you control the clock with a shot clock? Is you don't come down and quick shoot,
right?
Unless you are shooting layups, and then the right guys shooting the wide open shots.
Right.
because most teams are going to either W or press you to drive to the basket because they're trying to get extra possessions quicker. And so you just have to be wise in when you go and when not to go. And I thought, when San Diego State made a run, every single time down, UConn melt the clock. And
Yep.
and so when you start doing that and getting the shots that you want, they ran the offense, but they got the best shot every single time, which is something that you want to do. And it was, to me, it was masterful the way they competed every single game. I mean, every single game was pretty much the same uh, during the tournament.
Quick
Hey, it's
question.
finished.
Right. I thought that was funny though. Quick question. What is the anatomy of an upset? If like when you're trying to pull off an upset, what are the key components, Coach Ward? What do you have to do? I mean, you mentioned the clock management. I think that's definitely key. What are some other components you have to pull off an upset?
Let's just take a game, for instance. So let's go to the women's Final Four. I mean, Iowa wasn't expected to beat South Carolina,
Right.
um, but when your best player goes off the way she went off from an offensive standpoint, and then got everyone else involved, then it just opens that door.
So you
And
need a
then
Caitlin
second,
Clark, is what you're saying.
I mean, you're not necessarily, but
Yeah.
you just need someone or a group to be able to do the necessary things to win offensively, which they had. They had inside game, and they had the outside game when they were running their stuff. I mean, Caitlin had a lot of the points, but she
Yeah.
had a lot of assists as well, which meant that they were finishing, whether it was underneath their layups or 3-point shots. And so that's kind of what you need as well. And then defensively, you just have to, as they did. I mean, they picked their poison in a sense, and they ended up, winning the lottery because South Carolina wasn't able to find a way to make enough outside shots to beat them. And so that was as part of a strategy. It worked,
Yeah.
and that is what you kind of need, especially for one game. If it's a one game deal, then it's easy. But that's why it's tough in the NBA. When you're trying to pull an upset, it's tougher because you have to play them multiple times,
Right,
Right.
right,
Right.
right.
and at some point, the better teams normally win.
Yeah.
But in a one game scenario, that's not always the case.
When you're in South Carolina, and you mentioned them specifically, so let's go back to that one. Um, and because I'll be honest with you, been watching basketball my entire life. I've never seen a defensive strategy like Iowa used, where they just pack the paint and surrender the 3-point shot. And they basically told South Carolina, we don't think you can make this shot. At least we don't think you can make that shot like
That's
we
how
make
teams
this shot.
guard Russell Westbrook.
Right, but well, that's true. And Draymond Green and some others. But I'm saying I just have never seen a team do it. Like normally there are at least a couple of people on that team that can make that wide open shot. Now, was that South Carolina just not taking advantage of it? Because eventually in the second half, the girl who they were leaving open, she was the one that hit like 3 threes
She hit
back
3
to back.
threes in the second half. Yeah.
Right. So was it just a flaw in the response of South Carolina that somebody's leaving you with a wide open three with plenty of time? She could have taken her time and shot it like a free throw if she wanted. So was that just a flaw in the response from South Carolina, or were they just caught off guard and it just kind of shook them? The psychological part of the game.
No, I mean, if you watch enough South Carolina games, there are other teams that played them the same way.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
that I mean, if you watch, just take the SEC. I mean, the SEC tournament. I was watching one of the teams that they played. They played the same defense. It was a triangle and two, and whoever was inside, they just doubled that person. And they left the point guard out there dribbling uh, around, and they kept running the offense, but they were able to get it inside and do what they need to do. Uh, it would have helped if number 23 on South Carolina's team would have been able to hit a few of those shots that she took
Yeah.
because she kept shooting them, and she was wide open. And she's normally, I've seen her make those shots. She just didn't hit. Then they brought in another one of the seniors who's a shooter who hadn't played a lot, but she was a shooter. Zero, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't able to hit any. Um, and so a lot of the things that Coach Staley tried to do just didn't work. I mean, she was trying to put shooters around,
Right.
but those shooters weren't hitting. Contrast that to LSU, who they did very similar on
They made the
defense,
shots. Yeah.
and the girls and the ladies that they had on perimeter were able to make those shots, wide open shots. Um, and so that was the fundamental difference between the two.
But I'll say this about that, Charlie, and I agree with you 100%. The only thing I'll add to that is that the fundamental difference for me was South Carolina didn't hesitate. I mean, LSU didn't hesitate on those shots. Well, South Carolina, it seemed like they were out there thinking about, well, should I shoot it? Should I not shoot it? And then she finally ended up, a lot of times in the first half, she just went ahead and passed it. And even in the second half, after she made the three, she never shot again. She never shot the ball again. You're like, but you're on fire. Like, you just hit 3 in a row. Hit 6 in a row. Like, she keeps shooting. But with South Carolina, they kept firing.
But you're talking about one girl. I mean, it sound like you're talking about one girl. And
Well, I
like I
am.
said, that's not the that's not. I mean, she was like 2 for 4 or whatever it was. She was 50% from the three line.
He lost the second. But yeah, I think when you say, yeah, she was 50% in the second half. I think she was 3 for 6 in the second half.
Yeah. But
Hey,
to that point, it's not bad. That's
it's fine.
good. Yeah. So
but they did adjust though. After I think if it felt like after that third one, they did adjust.
They did adjust a little bit. Caitlin started to guard her a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they had, like I said, LSU made their threes.
Yeah.
If South Carolina would have made their threes, it would have been a different ball game because they would have had to guard them differently. But they just allowed LSU to shoot those same shots, different girls, different ladies. I think number 13 made a couple. The fire girl with the red hair.
Yeah.
She was on fire.
She kept them. She almost single-handedly.
That first half. I mean, she had 21 in the first half.
She had a Luke Hancock type game.
Yeah, she banked in. She banked in their threes.
Yeah. That's when you know you got it going. When everything goes in, like even the stuff that ain't supposed to go in, it goes in.
The challenging or the best thing about it was, the depth, the bench depth.
Yeah.
And that was the key to LSU being successful. Normally that was the key for South Carolina because whenever, your best players are not on the floor, you have others come in and you can either stretch the lead or keep the lead, whatever that may be. But, LSU, on both sides, both of their best players, LSU and Iowa had their best players on the bench during that stretch.
Yeah.
And LSU's bench came in and, kind of took over, which is what you want.
Yeah, Iowa's bench wasn't much. It wasn't.
Iowa did not have near the depth that LSU did.
Not at all.
The way that game was officiated actually helped LSU because I saw so many people, of course, the people don't really know anything about basketball. That was complaining about the officiating. While the officiating was horrible, but it wasn't one-sided. It was horrible both ways. But it worked out for LSU because with all the fouls, they had more depth. So they had more people, more guns to come in. So, I mean, as bad as it wasn't like it was, I mean, it upheld LSU because of the depth issue.
100% agree with you that it was not one-sided in any way. In fact, you could almost argue that a couple of those Iowa fouls, especially toward the second half, were horrendous. Like that fourth foul, I get it. You're not supposed to throw the ball out. I get it. Okay, whatever. But come on. There was nobody standing there. It's not like she threw it at a ref. That's not to call a tech for that is a bit much.
Especially in that game.
Yeah, like come on. Let's try to be a little bit more reasonable in our
do they give the leg game warnings in college?
They do give the warning in college. I mean, and that should have been a warning. It should have been an automatic tech. But
yeah, it should have been automatic tech. I don't know why the referee.
I'm glad. Part of me is glad that how bad women's college basketball officiating was put on the big stage like that, so that everybody can see how bad. Because we've been talking about how bad it is for years.
Right. Most people don't know how bad it is. That most people think, well, why was it so bad? And for those who have covered it, we're like, it's always this bad. It's been this bad for 15 years. It's nothing new. So anyway, I do want to extend the conversation out to a couple of things. I know we're gonna get to the controversial stuff in a minute, but I want to try to start with the positive stuff first. I think women's basketball had a moment in this tournament. Like this was, and this has been building for years. This is if you follow women's basketball, this has kind of been building for years because I've been following it and really looking at the trends close, especially the last 7 or 8 years. And like from Orike Ogumawale to the South Carolina shot. Not South Carolina. Mississippi State shot a few years back. This has been kind of building, but this year was the first year where it kind of worked out where the men's tournament they didn't have any names in the final weekend, whereas the women had all the names. They had all the cachet, the names, and it showed up in the ratings. Now this is where it got interesting to me because the women pulled a 9.9. That's as good as you can get. Like the men would have killed for a 9.9. I don't think the men got a 9.9.
I guarantee they didn't.
So it's can they build on this is the question that I have because as I think I said in the group chat, coming back next year, you have Caitlin Clark, you have Angel Reese, you have Paige Beckers should be healthy, you have Haley Van Lith. There are some interesting transfer that have already happened and are potentially about to happen. Elizabeth Kitley is coming back from Virginia Tech. There's a lot of, and of course, South Carolina is going to be South Carolina. So can they build on this is the question. Will ESPN pick up on that and say, hey, man, this might be the time.
I mean, it was the equivalent of a player having his best season in a contract year because the contract for the women's tournament I think is up this year, and so they're gonna be able to come to the table and like you simply give me some money. And so, right. So yeah, they're gonna have the opportunity to capitalize on this. I think they will. Especially hopefully they do smart things scheduling wise. Like we need to get an LSU Iowa game early in the season. I mean,
let's get that right.
Let's start the season with that game.
That'd be good. I'm game for that. Right, and I'd like to see them schedule wise. You know, Gino Auriemma is and I have to give Don Staley credit for it as well. They have been really good about playing anybody. Like they whatever. Now I understand also why Kim didn't last year because she didn't know she had. Well, now she does, so she may even step out there and do it well. But it would be nice if they would cross the country and play one another at least once, and then let's see what happens. Let's see. Like, it's cool to say somebody went undefeated, that's fine, but it's better to say somebody went undefeated playing the best.
Right.
And boy, that makes it really interesting. But I think there's a moment here that they could and should capitalize on, because if you're looking just on the names that are returning, Charlie, man, women's basketball is set up to be better even next year.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. When we start talking about changing the game and eyes and all those types of things, Steph Curry, the NBA was there, thriving, doing a lot of great players. But when Steph Curry started on this mission of being able to hit these long shots,
Right.
dribble between people, step back, and just his shot making, incredible shot making and playmaking, took everybody to another level, took the league
Yeah.
to another level.
Yeah.
And there's always been stars, players that have done it before, but he took took it to another level. And I feel like that's where Caitlin Clark is doing for the women's game. There's still stars there, people who can, ladies that can play.
Yeah.
Your Angel Reese's, your Fuds,
Mm-hmm.
Beckers.
Mm-hmm.
They're very good ball players, and but Caitlin Clark is her shot making, her playmaking is just going to take it to another level, and that's
Yeah.
what people want to see. That's what they like to see, and so I just think it's something that you know when we start looking back, she's the Steph Curry, of women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about elevating the game in a different way, because you have to guard her like when she cross half court,
Yeah.
and I mean,
You might need to guard her. You might need to pick her up before then.
I was gonna say it couldn't hurt if you guard a 94, that'd be all right.
so the way she's going to elevate the game the way Steph has elevated the game. I mean, like I said, there have been other stars, but it wasn't until he started shooting crazy shots and making them, just doing crazy things, shooting it and turning around, that kind of stuff.
Charlie,
Is
stay
what
there for a minute, because you're a coach. You are a coach. You're a state championship coach. I gotta ask you this question, because I heard an interesting interview with Isaiah Thomas on All the Smoke. Shout out to All the Smoke. And I don't know if you heard this, Kendrick, or not, but Isaiah Thomas credits Mark Jackson, which, by the way, I 100% agree with him, for being the first person to be okay with Steph and Clay doing what they were doing. How hard is it as a coach to give the green light to that style of play? Because it's got to be difficult, because it's so, like, there are a couple of times Caitlin Clark came down and shot that shot, and I was like, why are you shooting that? But then the other time she comes down and she makes it, and you're like, okay, well. So how difficult is that? Take us into that moment as a coach where you have to decide you have that kind of player, you got to let them eat.
well, as I shared before, a lot of times people on the outside just don't know, because they only see what they see.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're on the inside, you see the daily habits that you see the daily habits, you see the results, uh, day to day, and then you have to um, help them mature in their role. And what I mean by that is, every shot is not a good shot. Um, and so help them to understand what is that, what it looks like. And you've seen Steph mature
Right.
uh, in that part of his game over the course of years. Where early on, he may come down when he's feeling good, he may come down and they're up 10 to 12 points. He may just come down and just shoot without passing. But now you see him understand I need to get the ball to the side and work, other aspect to get the same shot. 10 to 12 seconds into the shot clock as opposed to right now. And so you've seen him mature over the years in his game. And I think, when you talk about Mark, Mark told, shared that they were the best shooting, team, combo, he had ever seen. And he's been around for a while, but it's because he saw them, in
Right,
practice every single day. And so that's why you can kind of give them that green light because you know they're capable of doing.
Well, listen, I know it is a process because you're right. With even with Caitlin, she'll grow into understanding the psychology of that shot. Because there is a psychology that comes along with it. It's not just shooting from the logo just to be saying you can do it. It's there's a reasoning behind it, and over the last probably 7 or 8 years, like specifically with Steph Curry, you kind of figure out, okay, I see how it offsets the defense. I see how it makes the defense, a little trepidation. It brings the defense forward to open up what's going down on the lane. So now I can hit a short corner easier. Now I can attack the middle with these back cuts that they can't see because they pulled themselves, up to the elbows because they're trying to stop you. So it's a very unique approach to the game. The history of the game is not noticed. All right, we got to go there. Unfortunately, but this is a good group to have this discussion with. The game itself, we're speaking about the South Carolina Iowa game. Unfortunately, was filled with a lot of madness as a result of as a result of the results. The immediate madness started with the quote unquote trash talking of Angel Reese in response, in her words, to trash talking that was done by Caitlin Clark. Do you guys have any issue with any of that took place?
What do you mean by trash talking? Before the
Well,
game or during the game?
all of it, any of it, all of it. We'll break down all of it because I think even in your question, you make a great point. During the game, after the game, is there any problem with trash talking?
Man, it depends on the people
Mm-hmm.
because there's always friendly trash talk, you know, between your buddies that you may know, whether you're all-star game together
Mm-hmm.
or you grew up playing AAU ball, against one another. Whatever it may be, there's always going to be that uh, element there. But as long as it doesn't get to a point where you're fighting on the court, but it's a friendly, trash talk, I don't see there being an issue. You talk about Reggie Miller during my time.
Right.
I mean,
You're a choke guy, right?
that's
Yeah.
just the way he got down.
Right.
And he knew how to try to get into people's heads. And that's the way he went. You just had to know. If you want to engage in that, you just know that who you're engaging in with. So I don't think this is something new. I think it happens probably more than what people may know, but it got to a point where um, it was on a big stage.
Right, and I think the ladies do have a point when they're saying they're just making a big deal out of it because it's the women. Because this is
Right.
stuff we see every game at men, and like who cares? And that's what was so funny about the outrage, which we know is as fake can be. Um, Caitlin Clark, she does that. She does, and it cracks me up when like the people who are the most outraged are the people who had nothing to do with it. Caitlin Clark wasn't upset. Iowa wasn't upset. The coach wasn't upset. Nobody was upset. Nobody was retaliating. Nothing happened. And like it became this whole big deal. But I mean, again, I mean, there was nothing there.
You have a problem with?
I mean, Angel did go a little bit far. I mean,
I'm
not gonna completely absolve Angel of anything. I mean, you don't have to follow her around. She did follow her around for a little bit.
Right.
Didn't have to, I mean, that was a little bit much. But to the main point.
She was trying to get an eye contact. That's why she was
right.
I need you to see me. Even though you can't see me, I need you to see me.
I need you to see that you can't see me. I'm not gonna completely absolve her of anything, but at the same time, I mean,
No, I do. I think she would want you to, because she meant what she meant.
She meant that.
Yeah.
And so, these people it's just something else. It's something else to be outraged about.
But let's also be clear. Let's be very honest and clear about this also as well. And this is where the controversy kind of ballooned, both online and I say beyond that. Iowa is a predominantly white team. LSU is a predominantly black team. So the optics look like something else.
So we're going back to the 60s.
Well, we're not, but that's what happens. That's what happens. And to me, that's where I think it's ironic, but that's where I think Jill Biden our first lady fell into the trap, because she went back to the 60s. She's like, no, we can't go back to the 60s. Let's have a kumbaya moment and bring everybody together at the White House and show love. Well, hold on.
It's not how this thing works.
That's not how it works. So it was just the thing escalated to a weird place to me, and that's what was throwing me off. Like, why are we making this a racial issue? This is a basketball game. You know what I mean? And I'll be honest, I got to give Caitlin Clark a whole lot of credit, because she openly came out and said, I had zero problem with what she did.
Right.
Zero. And she should catch no flack whatsoever. That's what should have happened. And by the way, I don't have any problem with what Angel Reese said. Caitlin Clark did disrespect South Carolina and Louisville and everybody else, like with the UKC me and the waving the girl off. Come on now. That's all of those things can be true, and we should be okay with it. It's trash talk. Why are we acting brand new with trash talk? It happens. I don't understand.
Because what happened, you had a lot of eyes watching that game that don't usually watch that game.
Well, then y'all need to stop watching it, because this is sports. There's always been trash talk in sports. There will always be trash talk in sports. That's just what it is.
Yeah, that was my point about people from here that claim to be Muhammad Ali fans are acting like they were appalled by what happened. I'm like, how are you a Muhammad Ali fan and that bothered you?
He's my favorite athlete. Well, then you need to stop then, because
then stop it.
Yeah, I think the two ladies did an excellent job of, pushing the narrative out of owning up to whatever it was, whatever their feelings were. And it was just what it was. It was trash talk within the system. And after the game, I mean, the game's over. So we just going to go on about our business and, let it be fuel for fire for the next opportunity, if the next opportunity comes. But I think people did a lot of that to be able to just share their narrative of what they saw. And, I think it got to a point where, they were saying she was a thug and she was this, Angel Reese, and then, Caitlin Clark, she was an angel, or whatever the case may be, or whatever they were saying. It was totally like opposites. And that's where you start throwing out, narratives that they weren't even, the ladies aren't even thinking about that.
Right.
Because Angel Reese, she has been that way since we've known
from
it.
day one.
It's high school. It's high school. There's a quote. There's a clip on the line right now with her blocking a young black girl's shot, and I specifically said that to make my point. And she blocks it at an AAU tournament and stares her down from the time she blocked it to the time the girl walked back to the sideline. So it's just what it is. I don't have a problem with passion, man. It's just passion. You know,
And I mean,
you know,
you don't have to be no thug,
no.
all that kind of stuff. You're just competitor, and if you want to call it cocky, call it cocky.
And a lot of it's just America is just repressed when it comes to celebrating for some reason. Because like you watch baseball in like other countries and like the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, man, it's a party. And like, but you get to America with baseball, and look at all the controversies that have come from somebody flipping a bat.
Right.
it's just so silly. And Major League, it's crazy because Major League Baseball is the worst at that. Because like you see that passion and all that stuff in college baseball and in high school baseball, but then they get up to the Major League level, and it's like you can't do this, you can't do that. They have the unwritten rules and blah 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 blah, and they throwing baseballs at each other, and it's so silly.
I'll be honest with you. I don't want to see a sporting event of any kind, of any sport, where the people playing that sporting event are not passionate about what they're doing. If you're just going to score, listen, you know what? I love Barry Sanders. He's one of my favorite football players. But the one thing with Barry Sanders is when he would score sometime, he would just hand the ball over to the ref. I'm like, Barry, do a dance or celebrate or something. But, it's okay. Like, if you don't, that was his way of celebrating, was to act like he's like, say, hey, I'll be back. That was kind of his I'll be back moment. So I get it. But I love the passion. I love the celebration. I think it's a kid's game. You get paid to play a kid's game. Right. And now everybody's getting paid to play a kid's game. So enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Have fun. I mean, you've worked this hard to get to this stage and to get a win. And I mean, it's so hard to get a win, especially at that level. I mean, people.
I just don't get it. I do not understand.
There's always something to fight about.
Yeah. And I mean, even the people going at it online, I saw Shaq having to respond to Keith Olbermann and other people. I was like, guys.
But yeah, and like Keith Olbermann's another prime example of like eyes that's not usually on their game, because he was like, because in his apology statement, he was like, well, I was unaware that Caitlin Clark had done all this before. Right, you hadn't been watching.
Why respond? Just you listen. Here's a rule for everybody in life. You ain't got to tweet everything.
Every thought doesn't need
like
to be
every thought that comes to your mind. You ain't got to tweet that. Sometimes put your phone down and just enjoy the moment that you're watching.
But I think it really became a black and white issue, and the way that it was, one was vilified for being black and all the things that people call the blacks, thugs and all the different things.
Right.
And then, the other side, was, like this angel type of mentality and thought process, and just, everything's cool, even though someone may be cocky and, trash talking, it's a sweet trash talk.
It's just gentle.
It's just that.
Love.
Yeah. So it's just the thought process and mindset that people go to when they see color, as opposed to just looking at it from the lens of it's trash talk, whether it's black or white or yellow.
Right.
It's just what it is, as opposed to trying to stigmatize.
Yeah.
Bring these things into play, and I just think more people were interested because of the dynamics of seeing how Caitlin Clark was going to handle the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There were other ladies there, at the Final Four.
Right.
But if Caitlin Clark wasn't there, it would have been the normal.
Yeah, it would have been fine.
Just call it for what it is. I mean, that's the way I see it. Um, and it's no different than a LeBron James, or Kevin Durant or Steph Curry, John Morant. When you start thinking about the playoffs, if those guys aren't in it, I mean, we have stars rising,
Yeah,
but if
Right.
those guys aren't in it, it's going to be hard to watch
yeah,
because you can promote some of the other guys who are rising, but if those guys aren't in it, it's a different deal.
yeah.
And so I think that was the biggest difference in the women's Final Four and having more eyes is because they wanted to see Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
Yeah. Angel Reese trash talks to Leah Boston. Nobody says a word.
Nope.
100.
Nobody says a word. So, we got some way too early expectations. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the projections, but one that really stood out to me. Of course, UConn is there. Of course,
Iowa,
Kentucky's
South
there.
Carolina.
What I'm talking about on
On the men's side.
the
Yeah.
men's side, yeah. UConn's there, Marquette is there, Duke is there, the usual suspects. But one is interesting at the number 5 spot is the Florida Atlantic Owls.
Well, I recognize that they didn't have one senior in the starting lineup. That was one. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they had any seniors on their team, but I know they didn't have one starter. And they had like two freshmen, a sophomore and a junior or something like that.
Yeah, they're a
Wow.
very young team.
And so one of the things that I'm hopeful for is that we have a lot of mid-major players, best players, who leave the mid-major to go to a Power Five in basketball to try to whatever it is. And I hope FAU getting to the Final Four will help keep some of those best players continue to play
Mm-hmm.
for their schools because I think in basketball it's a lot easier to get to move forward in the tournament as a mid-major as opposed to in football.
Yeah.
Um, and so if the mid-majors, as we've seen, there's normally one every year
Yeah.
Yep.
that
Yep.
breaks through, get
Yeah.
all the way to the Elite Eight, and
Yeah.
sometimes the Final Four,
And
as
they
we've
may be the
seen.
one. Yeah.
And you never know. And most times that team's coach normally
We
leaves,
normally leaves, right?
and then their best players or the best player normally leave, and then you don't see that team again.
Right.
But FAU thought they did a good job of locking up the coach for a few years. That doesn't mean he can't leave
Right.
next year, but at least they're giving him, you know. I saw somewhere where the College of Charleston's coach is making like $1 million.
Oh, wow.
The College of
Wow.
Charleston. And so that is where we're getting to, which is cool. And I'm happy because it keeps those mid majors vibrant.
Right. Right. Well, on the women's side, you got UConn as the number 1. Utah Utes are the number 2. LSU number 3. Iowa number 4. Indiana, UCLA, South Carolina drops down to 7. Ohio State at 8. Stanford at 9. Notre Dame at 10. I'm just curious. Is Louisville in the top 25? Not in the top. Oh, 22. Okay, all right.
What
Interesting.
are they?
They got them listed as 22, which I don't know if that's.
I wouldn't put them in the top 25 yet. We don't know what these guys are going to do.
I think where they're that's why they probably fell as far as they did. But it'll be
I
interesting
wouldn't
to
put
see.
them that high.
You think that's too high? Wow.
Yeah, especially if L. Ellis doesn't come back.
Oh no. That was on the women's
That
side.
was the
On
women's
the
side.
women's side. Okay.
Yeah,
Women's side.
no, you definitely don't put Louisville men in the top 25. I'm not sure they're top 50 right now. Like they got a lot of questions. Although I did see a tweet by Nolan Smith that said we got a lot of people coming in. Y'all gonna be shocked. I'm like, No, we're not going to be shocked at all. We don't know
They're
what
running.
you
I saw there when they're running for some 5-star.
for next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they may listen. Louisville may pull off a LSU type offseason. You know what I mean? Where they go get the best of the transfer portal and some 5-stars, and it all comes together in this magical run. Who knows? Because that's the world we live in now. And I mean, I think I may have mentioned this at the last show, or I mentioned on the 5. The new formula, I think, is a 5-star or 2, maybe not 5 like Kentucky tries to do, but maybe like 1 or 2 5-stars, some substantial transfers that fit your program, and some returning players. And I think that's the formula for making a run now. Because that's what we've seen the last 3 years. Those are the teams that have been successful and have won a national championship. They seem to have that combination going for them.
Look out for Kentucky because there's a lot of rumblings and that Sheway may come back for that COVID year next year.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's probably going to make more money at Kentucky than he would.
That is also
in
true.
the G League.
That is also true. Because he's going to the G League. He's not NBA ready yet. He needs to work out this summer with Solange. What's his name?
Sanogo.
Sanogo. I don't know why I want to put an L in that man's name. Sanogo. Because
I was watching Sanogo, and that whole time I was like, that's Sheway.
That's Sheway. Right.
Sheway with
the better footwork.
Better footwork and just better as a better defender.
Right.
And as a better offensive player too, to be honest with you. I mean, Sheway gets a lot of his points on putbacks. But Sanogo, you can run play.
Should be.
100%.
Yes. He's what Sheway should be, and that's his natural evolution. If he follows that path, he can make it to the NBA. But he's got to become that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's going to get a shot. It doesn't feel like he's going to ever get like a real jump shot. It doesn't feel like it. Now he may, the work he put the work in.
Well, the thing is, I mean, and one of my knocks on Cal is like Sheway might be able to shoot. We don't know because Cal's offense doesn't allow the bigs to shoot. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns barely shot threes at UK. Anthony Davis, I don't remember him ever shooting a three.
I don't remember him ever shooting a three. Yeah.
You go on down the line. It's like Cal's offense is set up. The bigs are played down in the low post.
Yeah.
So Sheway might be able to shoot. We just don't know that.
So interesting place where we are right now. So now we get ready for the draft, and as we prepare over the next few weeks, we'll get you ready and get you caught up on how our ACC boys are looking. Some of them are in real good position to crack the top first round or whatever, top first couple of rounds, as a matter of fact. I'm rooting for Zay. But we'll get you ready for that over the next couple of weeks and start talking about what that looks like. So do you guys have any shout outs this week? Well, who are you shouting out this week for BLEAV in the ACC?
I'd like to shout out UM and Virginia Tech for making the Final Four, representing the ACC.
Does your Florida State alumni?
I know how much that paid you to say.
I was going to say, does your Florida State alumni status not allow you to say the name?
I think his marital status eases that pain.
So my initial thought when he said UM, I was like, why did he shout out Michigan? Oh, he's not allowed to say Miami. I got it. It's Florida State.
Why can't I have no issues with Miami.
I mean, you didn't say it though. You said UM. I'm just saying. There's a lot of M's out there.
We're rivals, but we're also in the same state, and I have no issues with any of those schools.
Okay, all right.
So I'm happy. Let me be happy for the people and give them a shout out. I mean, just can we're so to a point where animosity is like the thing to be and to do. Can we just show some love for people that we may not like?
I mean, we can, but it's way more fun not to, though.
Oh, okay.
Hey, you know where we live.
Right. It's way more fun not to, but we're gonna let you have this moment, Charlie. Go ahead.
That was it for me.
That was good. That was good, Charlie. That was good.
Well,
and shout out to Elizabeth Kinley coming back. I mean, wow. 2-time player, ACC player of the year. Let's see if she can get a third.
Well, my shout out goes to Charlie Ward's favorite player.
Yes.
Mikasa Robinson. I did a one-on-one interview with Casa yesterday. I think it's going to air today, I guess. I don't know. It was supposed to air yesterday, but we had severe weather, so that blew out everything. So big shout out to her. She was gracious as always and sweet as can be. And she does get a kick out of Charlie Ward being her biggest fan. I tell her that every time I see her, she just laughs.
Is that my future daughter-in-law?
Yeah. There it is, baby. Breaking news. Dun, 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 dun.
The love connection that's trying to be made between the Ward family and the Casa's family. So
she just don't know yet, huh?
You don't know yet. Listen, Charlie, speak it into existence. You've been trained well in the ways of kingdom. So speak it into existence, sir.
For the record, Charlie talking about his son. He's talking about his son.
Right. Yeah, be very clear. We'll be very clear. He's talking about his son. Yeah.
What did he say?
No, we just trying to make sure clear up the controversy before it gets started.
Yeah, I said my future daughter-in-law.
Right, daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that's clear. All right.
She's your queen to be.
Well, more like princess to be.
It'd be young Wards.
The young Ward. Yeah.
Coach Junior.
Sometimes you gotta help them. They don't know what it looks like. Yeah, there you go. One of the things that happened. I'm sorry, Kenny. Were you done?
No, I was done.
Okay. One of the things that happened this weekend that a lot of people may or may not realize that in the midst of all this wonderful basketball that we also had an event that is near and dear to my heart, WrestleMania. And that went
like
off
5 days long.
It was long this year. For some reason, they decided to split it up into 2 days, but it works. Like they filled that place up. SoFi Stadium, they had almost 170,000 people come see WrestleMania, which is insane.
That's crazy.
It is insane to me. But I want to give a specific shout out to Bianca Crawford, who most people know as Bianca Belair. That is her stage name, if you will, her performance name. And she did something very, 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 very cool. Her intro for her match, she's the champ. She's the women's champ. And her intro for her match was to bring the Divas of Compton out, similarly dressed like her. They had the long ponytail and the whole nine. And they danced an intro for her to come out to. And it was very, very, very cool. It kind of made you really emotional if you watched it, because it was like, here are these beautiful little black girls from Compton who probably would never be able to touch the WrestleMania stage, right, other than the fact that she brought them there to do this dance and to bring her out on the stage. And they did their thing. They were fun. Listen, let's be clear. They deserved to be on that stage. They were phenomenally talented. Just ridiculous dance group. But the Divas of Compton. So I guess technically I'm giving a shout out to the Divas of Compton. But but I want to give a shout out to the WWE and specifically Bianca Belair for bringing them out on that stage. It was very shocking to see them out there because it was like, wow, a bunch of little black girls. Like, where'd they come from? And then they did their thing, and it was really, really cool. And they seemed to have a ball and to enjoy and embrace the moment. So shout out to them. I thought that was very, very, very. That was actually the coolest thing I saw all weekend. So,
nice. So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you just mentioned about the Divas of Compton,
mm-hmm,
right? And them getting an opportunity at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
and there's 170,000 people that showed up. Are they going to ask for NIL money?
Yeah, they should.
They
They
should.
should ask for a check.
Give
was-
me my
listen,
money.
Listen, hey, Charlie.
Come on,
The
man.
whole thing was sponsored by Snickers, so there's money to be shared.
Yes, give me my money.
Bring me my money. Charlie, this is big business.
What happened to the old days where
The purity of it.
you enjoyed the experience, and the experience gave you more opportunities to showcase your God-given ability, and you got your trips paid for that people, so what happened to that?
What Charlie, what we gonna do? Go home and watch My Three Sons now? Them days, them days is over, brother.
Yeah, his experience.
Come on, man.
His experience is need to cash these checks.
Oh my goodness. No. Knowing the WWE as I do from a business perspective, they probably did make a sizable contribution to the Divas of Compton. I mean, I'm sure they didn't come.
That's what I mean. Right,
yeah, I'm sure they did. By the way, shout out to the WWE for pulling maybe the most gangster move of the weekend.
Well, Bianca probably hooked them up.
Yeah, for sure. But shout out to WWE and UFC for pulling maybe the most gangster move of the whole weekend. That was a huge merger.
And Vince McMahon running around looking like some criminal in a 1970s movie.
Did you see the mustache? I don't understand.
Bring it up, Charlie. You gotta see.
I gotta bring it up, Charlie. You gotta see this. This is
maybe he's trying to change his identity.
He literally looks like the villain in like a superhero movie.
Like from a Dick Tracy, like it's the weirdest thing. I'm like, bro, what are you doing out here? Like,
so Lloyd, you're the big wrestling fan on the show. Are you worried about him taking back over the creative side of things? And
well, that actually got blown out of proportion because technically he's not. It's still Triple H. It's probably gonna be Triple H.
Oh wow!
That's a real picture, by the way, Charlie. That is not photoshopped in any way. That is Vince McMahon in the flesh.
Oh wow! Maybe it's trying to change his look.
He should stop. But no, that actually got blown out of proportion. I know that was trending on social media that he was taking back over creative. That's actually not true. But he is going to be back in the offices of WWE. Now that part is true. That was part of the merger agreement that he would kind of step back in. I don't know if he's going to be CEO anymore, but he's there. Like he's going to have a significant voice, as he should. Like it's his baby. So, what I don't know what you feel about Vince as a personal level, but one thing is undeniable. He has grown WWE into something unbelievable, quite unbelievable. Like I literally just said, that 170,000 people to attend both days. So,
I give him a lot of credit for that. I mean, he's especially this resurgence because like wrestling is not near what it was, in the social landscape, but he still is able to draw 170,000 people. Because like the performers now aren't household names like The Rock and Hulk Hogan.
No, they're not.
They're not like that. But yeah, they still drew that number. And that's impressive.
Well, because what's interesting about it now is while they're not household names to the general public, the universe itself, WWE universe itself, has massively grown. Mm-hmm. And the performers from an athletic perspective are way better. They're way better. Like it's not even close.
But at the same time, though, it is still Vince McMahon, and there's a lot of shadiness that goes along with Vince.
Well, listen,
I don't want to give him too many flowers.
In the words of the prophet, the Joker from the original Batman. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So, and so it's that omelet. So,
yes.
but yeah, that it's an interesting. The business side of WWE has always been fascinating. So, but anyway, again, shout out to the Divas of Compton and Bianca Belair for doing that this weekend. All right, that's all we got. We give you everything here. We give you women's, men's, WWE, mustaches, all that, marriage proposals, everything. We cover everything.
Arranged weddings.
Arranged weddings. We cover everything here on BLEAV.
Charlie's face.
Leave nothing off. All right. So there you go. Enjoy your weekend. The final weekend of the NBA is going down this weekend. The Masters
weekend.
Masters is going down right now. I think Tiger Woods is teeing off right now, as a matter of fact. What'd you say, Charlie?
I said the Masters going on now.
I was gonna say, Tiger Woods is literally, I think, about to either he has hit his first ball or he's about to. So it's gonna be a good weekend. It's gonna be a fun weekend as always. And it's Easter. I don't want a matter of fact Easter, but by the way, Jesus arose this weekend. Hello.
Resurrection Sunday.
Right. Resurrection Sunday is this weekend. So we got a lot going on this weekend. So enjoy your weekend, people. Try not to let the weather distract you from realizing just how great it is to be alive in America. So with that being said, Kendrick Haskins, Charlie Ward, Lloyd Spence, we out. You've been listening to BLEAV in the ACC with Charlie Ward, Lloyd Spence, and Kendrick Haskins. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share from the Noisemakers page on Facebook and on YouTube. And you can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be heard.